Welcome to Getting Ghosted. This is an Intuitive Soul Collective podcast, and I'm your host, Allie Horner. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This is Allie here. I am also filming this at the same time, so hopefully everything gets recorded okay and everything is hunky-dory. So we are going to do a little segment today where we're talking about my favorite stories and things that the other side want you to know about being on the other side. And so I have had a lot of people ask me a ton of questions on TikTok and throughout the years when I've been teaching and doing stuff on Facebook, etc., everyone has kind of generally had the same questions about the other side and how things work and what they experience. So I wanted to do a full episode or maybe even a series on this on my podcast. So this is something that I really, really care about. And like the reason that I care about telling people about the other side is because I feel it's super, super important for people to understand that we are not alone, that death is not a real thing. It's real in terms of the body's experience, but the body is not who we are. It's just a physical vessel that we're using. I want people to know that the vast majority of experiences that I have had, in fact, all of them, where the other side has come through in my 10 years of doing professional readings, and before that, when I was not doing professional readings, is that our soul is eternal. And they've always told me, you don't actually really die. You kind of just make a return back to the form that is your true self and your whole self, that we're here really having this human experience. And this is one of many places that we can incarnate to. There are many other lands, many other planets, many different dimensions and experiences and places that we could not even fathom as spiritual beings who are having a human experience. And so we come to the human experience and we forget all of this. And part of that is just a byproduct of us being in the third dimension, the density that we're in. It causes us to almost have to have this type of spiritual amnesia. And they've always told me if you were to come up in like much higher dimensions than where you're at, you would shoot straight out of your body. Like you would not be able to hold your physical vessel anymore. So we come here to have the physical experience. That's why we're here. And part of a physical experience is to experience like polarity and opposites and all of these different beings and things and experiences that feel good and bad and right and wrong and all of that. That's part of the physics of the 3D. So while we're here though, one of the things that I have noticed that helps people so much and that I've seen really help a lot of people is that when they find out that we are not our bodies and that death isn't the end, it's not that they become like, people are always like, you're going to make people reckless. And I'm like, no, they never end up being reckless. They never end up being careless or nonchalant or frivolous. But what does happen is they're no longer afraid of dying because they understand like, hey, like you're still here in the end. Like you end up taking all of these memories with you and your experiences from every incarnation are brought into the soul's experience and you get to reflect on them if you choose to in a life review, and everyone you've ever loved and everyone that you would even have in past and future lives and incarnations and other dimensions and other planets, etc., all throughout time, space, dimension, and reality are there to greet you because you're actually all one in the end. So you never have to worry about losing anyone at the end of the day. And so nor do you have to worry about losing yourself, because that's a big thing. Is a lot of people are like, well, I'm afraid of like losing me and losing my identity, but that's not something that you actually like have to worry about with this incarnational process and with the return to the soul. So we all go back from where we came from, and so that human experience, we will remember it and retain it on a soul level, and we'll retain all of our experiences that we've had, but we aren't necessarily identified with it anymore. Now we can, like when they come to talk to me, and so like, you know, Joy comes through as Joy and Sam comes through as Sam, and my great aunt comes through as herself. Her name was Corinne. So she comes through as herself. They remember, and they can come through as that persona, as that personality, just like as clear as I'm sitting here as Allie. But they're very aware of their multidimensionality, of their oneness, of their higher soul self, which is really the bigger part of all of us. Like, we all have this soul self. We're all part of it, and it's part of us. We just forget when we come here because we're here to be focused into our human form. So when people start to understand this, and when people start to get readings with their loved ones on the other side, and they start to get these types of messages, and they realize that their loved ones are very much still there, that they're very much still intact, what happens is they begin to live life a little bit less encumbered, like they are less stuck, they're more free, they're more alive. They start to feel like, oh my gosh, well, if I'm not having to worry so much about some like wrath of judgment or some sort of like spiritual afterlife where I get punished if I do things wrong, they start to realize the real punishment is not living according to your highest and best and most unconditionally loving experience, which means that you have a lot more freedom here on earth. The true hell is really living in fear and judgment and hate and honestly like eternal shame here on earth. Those emotions don't go with you when you pass. You actually kind of shed them because they're part of the 3D experience. They're too dense to exist in the non-physical experience. Now, humans project these emotions and these feelings onto the other side all the time, but that doesn't mean that the other side, that our loved ones and those spiritual souls, those ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them, they don't carry those emotions, but we can project them on them if we want to. And a lot of people don't realize that their own belief systems cause them to do so. So it causes them to not see them clearly or experience them clearly. So now, when we start to talk about like the experiences and the reality of the other side, it helps people kind of realize, well, you know, then if I came here to embrace the experience of being here and to truly immerse myself in the 3D, then why am I not doing that? And why am I living in a way that doesn't allow me to actually live? A lot of people are living as though they're like already dead. And that's a really sad thing, I think, because it causes them to do really destructive things to themselves and to others. When we're thinking and, you know, just covered in shame and we're embodying all this fear and we're making, it causes us to make judgments and to make decisions that come out of those emotions. And those aren't our true selves. Like those emotions, fear and anger and judgment and shame, that is not who you really are at all on earth. And so when you start to make decisions out of that, they're really different decisions than if you understood like, I can't fuck it up. Or, hey, what if you couldn't get it wrong? What would you truly say that you wanted to do right now? What would your real choice be? Most people wouldn't actually do something harmful towards someone else. Like the vast majority of people would be like, you know what? I would have pizza for dinner every night. You know what I'd do? I'd quit my job and I'd start traveling. Like, I mean, most people aren't going to do anything that's like actually that destructive, you know, because they're almost allowing themselves to say, hey, like maybe the way that I've been thinking about right and wrong is a little skewed. Like maybe I don't know what's actually right and wrong. Maybe it's okay for me to say yes to some of my dreams and desires and some of the things that I actually want for myself, and for me to go out there and like be a little bit more devil may care. And ironically, most people that are like, oh, who, me? I can do that. Those people actually usually aren't going to do anything that controversial anyways. Like it's kind of like they're the person who's coming back to life though. And that's when people start to really truly live. And where we see the best examples of this are in NDE experiences. The vast majority of NDE experiences, like 99% of them, are where people actually see a bright light. They're wrapped in peace. They still very much feel connected to their loved ones on earth, and they care about them, and they care about how their passing is affecting them. But they're met often with loved ones that they immediately recognize but may not have known on earth. Some of them are greeted by their family dog that passed when they were young, or they're greeted by a grandparent that they love, or they get to see their father. Like Anita Morjani, she met with her father, who she had lived with a lot of like, just emotional constriction of for a very long time when she was on earth. She got to meet with him again, and he gave her full unconditional love and blessing for her to live her life, which made a huge difference for her coming to earth. She had a lot of really cool epiphanies, and she's been on tons of interviews and tons of podcasts and has a book, several books actually, and like a really great Instagram. So you can always look her up. But one of her books that I read that just, I was like, this is exactly what the other side has told me too. Like, this is what they've told me really happens, was called Dying to Be Me. And so the vast majority of NDE experiences experience very similar things. Some have a little bit more, they're there longer, so they have a little bit more depth, and they have different purposes when they come back. So what they go through in their NDE, what information they bring back, what additional experiences they have after they return is really up to that person's soul and their path. So it's different for each of them from that point forward. But so many of them have been absolutely compelled to share their stories at the risk of looking absolutely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And a lot of them, even Anita said, and she's a very well-known NDEer, who shared her story even with like Wayne Dyer, for those of you guys who are familiar with Wayne Dyer and Hay House. She has shared her story on much larger scale than a lot of people have. And she had people flat out say, I don't believe you, and I think you're delusional. And so it happens to people. And so I understand why so many people don't share it. And but the vast majority of them have these really positive experiences, and they come back to talk about it because they're yet one more group of people that's here that's helping to raise consciousness. And one of the ways we raise consciousness is to not live in so much fear, which means that we have to be okay with what comes after physical experience. If you think about it, if we're all living in like this great, like I think one of the big core wounds of humanity is that we live in fear of dying. And that actually prevents us from fully living. And so when we're not so afraid of dying, like I can honestly say I have zero fears over dying. I do get worried about suffering in my death. I do get worried about different things. But even when I've heard like certain NDEers or people who've gone through severe experiences, they often talk about the neuroprotective ability of the brain to almost like shut off their pain centers or make it so that they're in this peaceful state. It doesn't look like they would be, but they're not always fully experiencing all that trauma and pain, which I find very interesting because it's the opposite of what I would have thought. And so when I started to read that, again, I just want to make a disclaimer too. For anyone that's like, oh my God, so she's saying it's okay for someone to like hurt or maim or murder or torture someone. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. That's never okay on earth. And the other side will also say so. While they don't like have the same types of judgments we do, they're like, yeah, no, let's not do any of that on earth. So they're like, it's very much like that's not the goal either, is we're not here to write off or approve any of that type of behavior. So just to be clear, it doesn't make those things okay or excuse them. And you will very much find that out in your life reviews for those of you who wonder about those types of things or have experienced those things. People who do those things do see that, and they have to experience it through your eyes or through the other person's eyes in their life review. Those people who've done really tough stuff, from what I've understood from my guides, most people's things are optional. Their life reviews are optional. Those people have to go through them, usually because their free will caused them to do something so destructive on earth. And some people have had NDEs, and I'm actually reading a story about a man right now who went through an NDE, and he was a big bully when he was on earth. And his NDE, he went into the NDE, had a life review, and it was like a panoramic type of thing, which is how I kind of see it too, although it's more spherical for me. And you can do life review before you go, just so you know. And so he saw all these experiences, and he didn't just reflect on them as himself. He was in the other people's bodies and feeling exactly what they went through. And it changed who he was when he got back. It changed who he wanted to be as a person when he came back from his NDE. And he was dead for like almost a half hour, was like literally wheeled on a gurney into a morgue like at the hospital. So all of a sudden he was like breathing, and someone was like, oh my God, the sheet's moving, he's breathing, because that's all he could do was breathe. He couldn't move any of his muscles or any of his limbs, which I'm still reading that one, so more on that later. I don't want to speak too soon. But when he came back, he started to realize like, wow, I really want to be a different person, and I need to tell my story. And he's now written a couple of books. So I will link that in the show notes when we're done here too, just so if I mention certain books, if you guys ever have questions, feel free to reach out on my website and I will link them in show notes. Because I know I mention a lot of books and a lot of different people when I'm chit-chatting on here. So now again, they're like, yeah, like my guides are all over here, and they're like, yeah, the NDEers are just almost like one line of like, they're showing them almost as like boots on the ground from Spirit's perspective. And they were like, cause y'all think we're up in the clouds. So we got, they're like, we're not, we're right next to you. We're just in another dimension, but we're definitely here. And so they're saying, but So for lack of a better way of saying it, you guys are kind of like the boots on the ground, having the 3D experience, and it takes a really strong soul to come down here. Every soul that's down here, is a really strong one to be able to come and do the earthly experience. It's not an easy experience to have. So they are saying, they're like, we want you to understand that when you come back, though, you are wrapped in this blanket of peace, and you shed all of those, the kind of egoic characteristics. But when you're on earth, you're meant to have your personality, and you are in control over how much of your personality you stay true to, and how much you let get taken over by anger, shame, fear, and all of these other things. And they're saying, now we understand trauma affects you, but there are people who bounce back from trauma and they're completely unencumbered. So look at these NDEers, or look at people who go through traumatic things, who are like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be an advocate for this, and I'm going to yada yada, and they're living completely fully. And then there's other people who go through things, and regardless of how much trauma or whatever, it almost like it doesn't matter. It's more about who you bounce back into. And so they're kind of saying it's kind of like you're all coming here to play chess, but the materials you're using and how the chessboard is made and what it's made out of is kind of more up to you. And some of that is filled out. They said it's kind of like a questionnaire. They're showing me questionnaires you fill out with their guides, they said, for lack of a better way of showing it. But they're like, okay, so you want to have this and you want to have that. Okay. And you want to experience this and you want to be born there. And this is what you want to have. And this is what you want to have is kind of a life goal type of thing. And this is like generally what you want to accomplish on this path. Now there might be a lot of free will in how you accomplish it, but that might be something that you want to accomplish on that path. So they're like, so you do have this kind of plan also when you come in. And so a lot of NDEers, when they, kind of bounce back to the other side, even for a very short period of time, they meet with those spiritual guides, they meet with those soul guides, and we all have them, and they're all there to help us at all times unconditionally. And so they're wanting to explain too, the other side is not some magical place. It's actually just another dimensional reality, and it's non-physical, and it's from where you came. And they also said manifestation is really interesting and cool there, because they said it's really like the true world. And when people are talking about the new earth, this is what they're actually talking about, is actually the other side. But we are here to make it more and more manifest on earth. We're here to bring the unconditional love, which is true pure existence, really, from the other side, from our soul. And we're here to embody it here on earth. And that's why a lot of my work, I let my guides guide my work. Just to be clear with everyone, I really work with my guides, because I know that they are going to always take me back to, here's the larger thing you came here to do. Here's your larger purpose. Here's what your soul's wanting to experience. And I really trust them. And I tell them, help me match that frequency so that it comes through the right way at the right time. And they know that they're allowed to teach through me, as is highest and best for myself and for all who listen. And I always think when people are ready for a different teacher, they'll move to another teacher on TikTok or YouTube or in their community or wherever else. I do think we should be finding more and more local community members, but that's for a conversation for another day. But a lot of our guides are here to channel with us and through us, and your guides are here helping you too. They're here unconditionally at all times, because Earth is such a tough place, because of the amount of physical density that we have going on here. It can be a lot. It's a lot to handle. So what they want you to also remember about the other side, and this is some things that I've heard from the other side, and I'm going to kind of run through them really quickly. One, we all go back to the same place. Doesn't matter what we did on Earth. However, some people will take a little bit of time to almost balance the scales, as I say. So if you did something really, really destructive when you were on Earth, or you hurt a lot of people, you always have the chance while you're alive to remedy that and to turn over a new leaf, as they say. But as a soul, you're not required to do that when you pass, but you want to, because you return to this unconditionally loving self. There's nothing you want more than to remedy what you've done. And it comes from a loving place. And they've told me that over and over and over. It comes from a place of pure love. People, when they pass, they feel compelled to change things. They feel compelled to almost quote unquote make up for it. They spend a lot of time sending love and beaming goodwill to people on Earth. So, and then people who are when they've passed, a lot of times they love to tell me about things that they're doing. And people are always like, do they miss out on things? Did they know that I got married? Were they there? they love things like that. They know about everything you have going on. They know when you're distressed. They know when you're happy. They know when you're sad. They know when you're getting married. They know when you've had a baby. They know when you've lost a baby. They know everything. A lot of the time they meet your babies before they come in and they get them ready to go. And that's one of their favorite things to show me in readings, is that they love to like show, I've noticed grandfathers tend to do this and dads tend to do this like more than anyone, but they'll show them almost like putting the baby in a little bit of like a parachute, like their soul goes into this, it's almost like a skydiving backpack, and they'll show them parachuting down and they're sending them off like, have a great trip on earth. Like, or one of the other ones they like to show me is they send the kids in, like through a water slide, and often that'll be symbolic of the baby's birth was very quick and mom was not in labor for a long time, basically almost gave birth on the side of the road. And so they'll show me like that, and they'll kind of give me certain symbolic type of things, but they also give me certain things that might match their lifetime if that's appropriate. Now, sometimes grandmothers like to show that they met with the baby, chit-chatted with them, prepared them for their time on earth. Same with the grandfathers, but the grandmothers love to show them, bringing them in like their little basket, or they like to show them getting sent in by the stork. So your grandparents, your parents, your brothers and sisters who've passed, your bestie who passed, they do meet with your little ones and they're part of your soul group. And so they love to send your little guys in, and they often mention that they spend some time with them beforehand, preparing them for earth and talking to them about their earthly experience. And this is why sometimes some of your little ones, when they come in, they remind you so much of your loved ones, or of your friends, even though it's like, how would you act like that? Like, how would you know these things about my friend on the other side? You never met her. She died before you were born. So, and also little ones are quite clear channels. As long as we're not turning it off or letting it be turned off by society and technology and all that, they can stay pretty clear, and future kids will, and they're going to need us to know how this all works so that they don't get overwhelmed on earth. So something else they often say to me is that their life was really precious and really valuable to them. Even if they committed suicide, their life was very meaningful. And at the same time, if they're meant to go at that time, they're meant to go. I've even had souls tell me, like, hey, like you can even try to leave before you're supposed to leave and you won't be able to. And that's why sometimes people have accidents, or asthma attacks, or I almost drowned twice when I was little. And that'll be a story for another day. But it wasn't time yet. Sometimes people will make a suicide attempt and it'll be thwarted, or they'll come back and they'll have like a new lease on life for a while. And it kind of depends on the person. But if it's not time yet, it's not time. But if someone passes, it was time. Regardless of how they pass, it was time. Now, there are certain exceptions to that from what I've heard from the other side. And that's when someone has had their life taken by someone else. That said, I know there's a lot of different perspectives out there, but they're like, there isn't really an excuse for taking someone else's experience away from them or doing something like that. But often there are a lot of very interesting survival stories where people still don't end up, they still end up surviving. And so it's a very, very interesting phenomenon, right? But they're like, we don't want people to be like obsessing over when their exit point's going to be. More so just know that it's not going to be as scary and traumatic as it may seem. And then often people are kind of wrapped up in this bubble of peace beforehand. And I hope that maybe helps some people when they're thinking about their loved ones who passed. I've even had people who were killed very, very in traumatic ways who said, nope, total bubble of peace. Like, I felt this and I felt fear for this amount of time, or yada, yada. Yes, absolutely. But at the end, I was in a completely peaceful state. And something else that I hear often is that there isn't like oh my gosh, like they don't hate people who did awful things to them. they often spend a lot of time trying to get that person to steer in a better direction if they're still alive, which I always find is very, very interesting. And something that my guides have explained time and time again is like, well, in another lifetime, you could have been the one doing the mean thing or doing the harmful thing or whatever, or accidentally, hitting someone with your car and feeling awful about it for the rest of your life, and so they're like, so often that soul spends a lot of time trying to help that person steer in the other direction because that's what they would have done for them in a previous lifetime if the roles were reversed, and very often they are. And so on that note, you in each lifetime, you're going to have tons of different experiences. And in one lifetime, you might, for example, be like, very into civil rights movement, etc. And then in this lifetime, you might be like experiencing a lot of internalized racism and grown up around a lot of racism and have the opportunity to overcome that in this lifetime. And it's your choice with your free will if you do. But you will, every person to some degree has parts of their past lives and parts of their previous experiences that they remember. And it's almost like, as the guides have communicated to me, and as the other side has communicated it to me time and time again, that we'll have memories or almost like inclinations or like a nudge or a pull toward a specific viewpoint. Sometimes we come here and we experience a lot of contrast out of our own free will, and partially just because that's the nature of the 3D world. There is contrast in a physical world. And so, like, for example, though, if you need to get the inspiration to move past something, like a very, judgy, racist upbringing, and to have your own perspectives, you might start to have this little voice inside that's like, no, is that the right way to think about that? I don't know what I think. I don't agree with that. You might be pulled toward learning about the civil rights movement. You might be pulled toward looking up to certain mentors or historical figures that represented anti-slavery or anti-racism movements. And so you might start finding books on the topic and seeking out information, or just happening to come across information. And that's because in this lifetime, perhaps your soul was working to overcome that. And it was almost like, hey, remember when you had this experience? Because at a soul level, racism is like, the soul doesn't have racism because the soul has had so many different experiences and so many different lifetimes. And it's always trying to pull you back to your truth. And your truth will not have a racist perspective on life or a judgmental perspective on other people simply because of the color of their skin or their religious preferences or whatever. So, your soul just sits in that completely loving experience and does everything it can to pull you back toward it and to remind you who you really are, and more so what you really are at the end of the day. And so we all come here and we can have these contrasting experiences, and we might bop in and out of them as well. So now another thing that they've told me many, many times is that your loved ones, they said, we are always with you because we very literally are dimensionally like in the same dimension on a soul level. So we are literally always with you, but you're in 3D, so you're just not able to open up your senses enough and heighten your senses enough a lot of time to see us and to hear us and to connect with us. But you can learn how to do that. And one of the best things and the most common things they mention is movement and meditation. And they said you guys are going to have to start at very basic stress relief type of things. The movement and outdoor movement is really important because it grounds your energy through your feet, which is really important when you're starting to open your psychic senses, that you are having that, taking care of that vessel and getting that movement. You're not going to be able to ignore your physical vessel and not take care of it and do really good channeling. If you try to do both, you're going to have a lot of issues with things. So it's really important that you're able to take care of your physical vessel to the best of your ability when you're on Earth. Now, one of the other things they tell me a lot is that you will be able to connect with them more and more if you're doing things that allow your mind to go a little bit more zen. So if that's a really great meditation session, if that's, you get in a nice like Epsom salt bath, if that is using some nice essential oils, whatever it is, but you're going to need to move stress and certain wonky, misaligned energy or misbalanced energy out of your body pretty consistently, because our Earth, and we're always having to recalibrate because our Earth and our our physical vessel, like our 3D world, is always pulling us in and out of yin and yang, in and out of balance. And that's okay. That's part of the deal here. We're always up and down in frequency and in vibration, right? So it's going to be really helpful. They're always showing dancing, swaying, physical movement, anything that allows emotions to come up and out. And emotions are really just energy in motion. So we don't need to always tell a story around them. We just have to feel what's going on in the physical vessel and find a way for it to think about it like feel, deal, heal. There's a really great mentor on Instagram. I cannot remember her name. If you know who she is, or if you know what I'm talking about, Tiffany Rowe, maybe Tiffany something. But she does feel, deal, heal. And I'm like, that's the most perfect way I've ever heard that expressed before. And it's so easy and simple to remember, but it's all about feeling the energy in your body and not always having to like make a big story or label out of it or know where it came from. You just need to feel it, work with it, and it's gonna like float away. So it is important to remember that right now, that there is going to be so much more of that as your sensitivity grows, but that's what's going to allow you to heighten your senses and use that nice big sixth sense, so that you can see and smell and hear and feel your loved ones from the other side more. And they are always working toward that connection, because the more we rise in consciousness, the closer we get to the collective goal. Now, on that note, we do have soul path and some degree of fate or destiny here, but we also have a lot of free will. And also fate and destiny is very misunderstood, and it can be very different from person to person and what they're here to experience. So some people, like, there aren't always fated events, but there can be. And on a collective level, we have also higher collective purpose as a group. And there also are like mini collectives, like in America or in this generation or in that group of people or in this industry. There can be larger collective purposes. And so your main thing is that you have to remember there might be a larger evolutionary process or a larger collective purpose or a larger reason that you came, where you're part of this group and we're all equally important, and we're all really important to that. And at the same time, you might have your individual purpose or individual ideal path on top of that. So it's really important to remember that each person and each soul has that. Now, whether or not they're leaning into it and trying to find their way in it is kind of up to each one. And one thing my guides tell me over and over is you cannot talk anyone into that. So for those of you guys who love to be saving and fixing and healing, and I totally get it, like via the work I do, let them come to you when they're ready. You cannot convince, you cannot convert, you cannot talk to them about anything. Like you're not going to be able to get people to a place that they're not willing or able to go to. All you're meant to do is sit and you stay connected to your highest and best purpose. And the people who are meant to come toward you will. They will. Like, it's just the most natural thing in the world. Like, they're just going to come and find you. You just keep doing your thing. You're going to align right to the right people at the right time if you do that. And your intuition and your synchronicities and your feeling of flow and lightness and ease and prosperity is going to increase exponentially very fast. If you're like, you know what, I'm not going to be little Miss Barbara the Builder or Bob the Builder in my relationships, with my parents, with my kids, with anyone. I am going to stay in my alignment. And I'm going to let when you're in that, you're in a powerful frequency. And they tell me this all the time. And that's when you can receive the highest and best spiritual guidance. You can stay connected to that soul and to that higher purpose. And you can help others around you step into it, but they have to choose it. So it's not about us controlling everything. All we can really focus on is what is highest and best for myself. And when we're doing what's highest and best from the soul level, it's not a me, or a selfish thing. It actually ends up being a larger we thing, because that's when we get into the larger rhythm of what the soul needs us to do. And the soul knows where everyone else is at and what they're doing and what it needs them to do too, and what's actually highest and best for ourselves and all. So working with the soul is actually going to put you a little bit more in that feeling of being able to go with the flow, and it's going to feel a lot better. Now, the other thing they're talking about is that the other side, in order to help you with soul path and soul alignment and to help you not have so much fear of death, they love to come through and chat in little bursts. And they're not always going to be easy to perceive all the time, especially because that's just a lot of energy to deal with for people. And we have to learn how to go up and acclimate. And then we're kind of needing to integrate that energy, or it gets to be a lot. It can make you spacey or a little buzzy. It can actually make you very distracted if you're not using it or not used to it too. So it's really important that you know that it's okay to go up and down and in and out of that connection. And they're always going to be there, giving you little signs, little signals, little tidbits in your ear, whispering in your ear, telling you how much they love you, giving you guidance, helping you through your intuition and through your inner inspiration, helping you through nudges. That's what they love to do. And like, they're almost like there's nothing more we'd rather do. Now they do have fun things that they do on the other side. So a lot of times people are like, oh, this person didn't get to experience this and this when they were here and they passed and like they never got to go do that. Trust me, they're doing it on the other side. So I often see people a lot of people's loved ones or parents or grandparents will show that they are doing certain activities that, were really meaningful to them when they were alive, or they might be things that they stopped doing when they were young, but that made them really happy, like painting, etc. I often see people riding motorcycles, people flying. They love to show me that they're flying. It's kind of like Peter Pan, they often show up at the age that was their favorite and where they felt the best. So I've seen a lot of people's grandmothers show up in their 20s and 30s when they felt the most confident and the most radiant, in their best outfits too. I've had people's grandmothers come through with purple hair, telling them, look, I finally did it. Do you like my new look? And it's like they're finally saying, I get to really be me and really play and really have fun. You know what I mean? And so I always love when those types of things happen, and it's so much fun. One of the other things you need to know too is do not worry about them being proud of you. They're always proud of you. They know how hard Earth is and they're always proud of you. And yes, of course, they found your other loved ones on the other side. So if you have like a grandfather that's on the other side and you're like, I'm just really worried, is he waiting for my grandma, or did she find him when she passed them? Like, he probably came down to get her. He was probably here with her before she passed, just like waiting and going, clock's ticking, ma'am. So they love to keep each other company. And again, we just can't always see them or hear them, but they are definitely there. And trust me, they absolutely found each other. There's no way that they couldn't on the other side. Now, a lot of people wonder too about their pets and their animals. I love to tell the story of Sam. When Sam first introduced himself to me, and he's one of my spirit guides over here, one of the things he showed me about his passing, because he passed relatively young and he lived on, he always sings the song, Home, Home on the Range. But so he lived on a really large, he calls it like a ranch farm. And he had a ton of animals that he took care of. And when he passed very suddenly, all the first group of beings to come running in to greet him as he was dying were all of these animals that he had taken care of when they were alive. And it was like horses and cows and piglets and like all of these chickens and dogs and cats and birds and hens. And like, I just was like, oh my God. And he even showed like some little bunnies and squirrels that he used to feed with little, like raw carrots and stuff like that. And so he was greeted by like a menagerie of animals, if you will. And so, yes, your pets absolutely will be there. They are probably already hanging around you, and a lot of people's pets love to come and hang out with them. I have had my friends' pets come and visit me, and my dog, who passed several years ago, still likes to come in, make his presence known from time to time. And also, someone asked me, when you do readings with people's pets, like, how do they come through? Do they talk, or like what's? And I'm like, yeah, they kind of like telepathically talk, but they have had human lifetimes too, so they can kind of, the soul doesn't necessarily need a specific language or a certain persona, though they will often show themselves to me or show me their favorite toys. I had someone's dog come through and they showed me, they had all the tennis balls that they could ever dream of, and it was like an endless like someone throwing tennis balls for them endlessly. And so that's like one of my favorite experiences with a pet. When my friend's pup passed away, I knew because she came up and she put her head in my lap, and I had been sitting in my office, and my friend was miles and miles and miles away, hundreds of miles away. And I was like, oh shit, his dog passed. And so I just knew right away, pardon my French, that she had passed and that she was happy and she was doing well. And my dog had greeted her and helped her with her transition to the other side. So now something else that people have wondered about is like, does the other side care like what, if you were gay, if you were straight, how you identify gender wise on earth. And the answer is absolutely not. They don't give a shit. What they care about. And one thing so many souls are here to experience right now is to be unapologetically you, because that is going to lighten your energy and your frequency to the best ability possible, so that you can live with full integrity and live with full and true love in your life. And I know there are so many different types of circumstances and safety for different people. And so I'm not here to tell anyone what to do or to judge. But I have even talked to people on the other side who, were trans when they were alive. And one of my favorites is Roxanne, who also is Roger, born Roger, turned into, she calls herself Foxy Roxy. And that's who she shows up as from her soul self. She doesn't show up as Roger as much, though she's shown me who she was as Roger and how she felt, and she didn't feel like her true self. And so she loves to come through, and she talks to me and my friend quite a bit, and loves to guide her as well. And so she loves to come through, and she is sassy and so much fun to talk to, and she is good for a good pep talk. So if anyone else wants to call her in, I'm sure you'll be able to talk to her. But she loves to call herself Roxanne. She'll bring through that song to symbolize it's her coming through. But she always talks about you get to come through in the fullest expression of you from the other side. It doesn't really matter. And she's always like, I wish I had understood more on earth that no one was going to judge me on the other side. No one would want to, because they're in such a space of love that they're like, yeah, man, do you? And she said, or more like, yeah, babe, do you? And so it doesn't really matter how you identify. It doesn't matter who you love or what you love. You're really just, everything is awakening you to your own love and to the beingness and to the love that you actually truly are on earth. And so you're going to have many opportunities to experience that love in many forms. And so the key is that to be in integrity, it's not about a moral integrity where it's kind of like subjective, and people define that differently. It's more about integrity as in, I'm sure in and of myself, I feel good in and of myself. I know who I am, and I feel connected to who I am as in terms of a purpose on earth and what I'm here to express and to be on earth. That is going to clear the path for so much more beauty and love and creativity on earth. It's going to make so much more prosperity available to you and to others. And I kept hearing Roxy saying, you'll become a beacon. You become a beacon for love and for grace and for gratitude. And at the end of the day, there is no judgmental force that's going to tell you who you can and can't be. It's really all about recognizing that who you are is perfect in every way. And so because of that, if you're like, well, I don't feel safe, being who I am out loud and proud, that's okay too. The soul doesn't judge that either, but it might affect your manifesting on earth, and she's showing wonky manifestations simply because there's some fear behind the actions and stuff. There might also be people that are like, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do me and be me. And this is with many things. It's not just with these expressions. It might also have to do with having quote unquote the right career or the right partner or having the right amount of money or the right body type or the right home and the right car. And you know what I mean? All these different things. And once you get past the ideas of right and wrong is when you can find a lot more bliss and you can find that creative peace and power that you're looking for. Because when we're looking at things from the lens of good, bad, right, wrong all the time, and we're having this full judgment over everything, it really turns off our creative potential. And that's when we put limits on what's available to us, right? Because we think, well, this is all that there is. And what's popping in my head is the mom from oh my God, from White Lotus season 3, where she's like, Buddhism, Piper, no. I'm just like, that's exactly it. It's that type of thing. It's that type of person where it's like, the 3 girls on the show, who are supposed to be best friends, but then there's this quiet, seething rage underneath everything, or they're really trying to be in one way and they're truly another, that's where you can feel that lack of integrity, right, in people. And now at the same time, they always tell me the soul doesn't judge if you have that lack of integrity, because we're all just kind of figuring things out on earth, and earth is very tough, and they understand why we might feel uncomfortable being our true selves, and what's happened to us to make us feel that way, and how the world is operating. So they don't judge us, but they will continue to try and help us love ourselves truly and fully, because it makes it very difficult for us to bring love to earth if we're not existing in the true state from which we came. Down here physically. This is getting, I feel like they want to take a little pause, and I'm feeling it too. So if you guys have questions, feel free to submit them. I have a link to the podcast page in my show notes. And I am collecting stories for the listener episodes here in the future. So if you want to submit one, please feel free. If you would like to hear more about my readings and experiences talking to the other side, and things that the other side want to tell us about the other side, or about living life on earth, let us know in the Patreon groups, or again by using that link in the show notes to go to the podcast page on my website. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode. So that's it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening in. Just a quick reminder, if you're interested in learning how to channel your guides and the other side, I have the Art of Clear Channeling, a course opening up, and it's open for enrollment now, but it'll start in early April. It's going to teach you how to really bring through higher consciousness messages through your body, using your voice, using your art, in every moment. And it's going to talk about what channeling is and how to really rise into your channeling ability in many different ways on earth. So if you're interested in that, please come and check that out. That'll be more of like, it's like an 8-week course. So if you're like, yeah, I really want to learn how to work with this energy and channel and really do this, that'll be a great course to be in. We already have several people signed up, so I'm excited to teach that and to really teach you guys how to work with the body, because from what I found from a lot of courses, they kind of miss the body piece. They work on the mind, they work on, the higher senses and connecting with the other side, but they don't work on clearing things through the body. So I think that this is going to help in a lot of areas, and it's also going to help with manifestation a lot, at least from what I found in this type of work that I've been practicing. Now, the other thing we have going on is we have a couple of fun master classes. These will be included for the Channelers and Changemakers tier on Patreon, but they are going to be some really good master classes, and they're level 1 and level 2, learning how to channel spirit guides in the other side classes. And so again, these are just little classes, so they're short and sweet versus an entire course, but they'll give you the next steps in learning how to channel, whether you're beginner or an intermediate level. And then the other one is learning how to use your sensitivity as a superpower for empathic people. So people who pick up everything from the world around them and identify as HSPs or highly sensitive people or empaths. This is going to help you feel a little bit more empowered, so you're not always having to walk around with a crystal or protective stone or whatever else, and always being kind of like at the mercy of what you're picking up from the world around you. This is going to be a really, really, really helpful masterclass and give you a taster into how to actually channel all of that energy that you're picking up, because really you are the channel for it, and you were made exactly how you needed to be made. Your body is an amazing vessel. And so this class, my guides were really, really, really pushing this one, because I used to have really severe anxiety, like severe for years and years. And then I learned how to work with higher energy, and I don't have anxiety anymore. It's super neat. So, these classes will help. And again, there's a beginner and an intermediate level. Beginners for people who are like, I have no idea what to do. I don't know how clairsentience works. Can you teach me? That's going to be much more the beginner level. And then the intermediate is going to be, hey, I'm really like, I don't want to be protecting myself every 5 minutes. I don't want to have to always do energy circles and do this and do that. this is going to be for you to really learn how to channel energy. And it's going to be a good taster if you're like not sure if you want to sign up for the art of channeling. Both of those classes will be really great as a taster to see a little bit more of what we might be teaching in there, just as a little soundbite. And same thing with the spirit guides and other side master classes. So if those are things you might be interested in, they'll be linked up in the show notes. Again, I'm always here to answer questions for you, and I'm going to have some really fun clear conduit channeling and trance channeling sessions coming up. I'm going to open them in the next couple days here for the wait list. And I'm going to do just a handful of them. So when they're sold out, they're sold out. And then I'll have to start the wait list again and open it when it's time. But I'm also going to do some group channeling and activation here soon. So I hope you guys are excited for that. Come and join us on Patreon. Come and join us in a masterclass. We've got plenty of things for whatever will float your boat. Thank you so much for listening today. And I appreciate you guys all so much for being here listening to the podcast. Thank you all so much.